All right. Welcome. Hi. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Are we having fun yet? Good thing I've been chanting. Computer madness. All right. We're going to continue with the treasure of a filial child. Part 2. And let's see, where we leave off. All this is because the sutra passage that declares, quote, not a one will fail to attain Buddhahood was not spoken in vain. All right. So, Nichiren is making a point of the primacy of the Lotus Sutra, of course. Specifically the statement that anyone who learns a phrase or take in embracing the Lotus Sutra will in fact be reciting everything that supports the title of Myoho Renge Kyo. And so it's experientially an expedient means to Gohanzan, your samsaric gateway to Buddhahood, right? Now this is interesting because he's writing this to the wife of the late Abutsubo, who lived till he was 91, so still endeavoring in his latter years to travel from Sato all the way to Minobu. No easy feat. That task now taken over by his son. So again, this is filial devotion. But we're also going to deal with a little bit of this afterlife question that comes up a lot in Buddhism. So here we go. Some may wonder where the spirit of the late Abutsubo may be at this moment. The spirit of Abutsubo. Not the soul, because there's no such thing in Buddhism. There's no container of you. Again, the mind is something that's emergent from this samsaric life. So this is the only place where you're going to be able to use that mind to instantiate, to experience your Buddha, right? Since Buddhism is all about mental function and how it consists of our life experience, there's a translated word here that tries to encapsulate that idea of that mind. And that's where you hear the word spirit or spiritual pop up. This is not mystical in any way. It's just an English word used to try to encapsulate the idea of this disembodied mind that is emanated or emergent of this body of experience, this physical world, but is not itself a physical attribute or component of life. Okay? So I just want to, translations and biases and cultural biases and words, they can trap you. And I will remind you again, as Nichiren and Shakyamuni himself does, don't get trapped by the words. Try to understand the concept here. Ears feel blocked. But by using the clear mirror of the Lotus Sutra to reflect his image, I, Nichiren, can see him among the assembly on Eagle Peak, seated within the treasure tower of many treasures Buddha and facing toward the east. Facing toward the east is an ominous sort of thing, certainly in Japan, but in Buddhism in general. The story of the Lotus Sutra indicates the ceremony in the sky, right? And So everyone faces west as they listen to the Buddha facing east. But when Buddha Shakyamuni enters the treasure tower, which is with the people, right? Gohonzon, the treasure tower of many treasures, which is our fortune to enlighten ourselves. Everyone faces east along with the Buddha. And so this many treasures Buddha and facing toward the east indicates that Abutsubo is now with Buddha. So how do we interpret all of that? Basically, the only way you can be with Buddha, as I've said it many different ways, but this is different. The only way you can be with Buddha is in this samsaric life. So east, west, north, south, don't even bother with that. This is a symbolic indication that Abutsubo is now with Buddha. And if he's with Buddha, he is nowhere other than in this samsaric world. And how can that be? Because he is in your mind. The mind is in this world. The mind is what instantiates Buddha. So Abutsubo's body, his physical reality, it's gone, right? And his instantiation of mind and Buddha is also gone, because there's no body, no physical mechanism by which to emanate or instantiate or emerge this mind of Abutsubo. But what Abutsubo represents is still very much a part of his wife, his son, his family, and Nichiren for that matter, right? So Nichiren says, when I use the Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo, to reflect his image, not him, but the image I have of Abutsubo, I concatenate with the visual image. I can see him among the assembly on Eagle Peak. What is the reference of the assembly on Eagle Peak all the time? That is a reference to the sermon of the Lotus Sutra. And furthermore, he's seated within the treasure tower of many treasures Buddha and facing toward the east. So, he sees Abutsubo as having achieved his enlightenment. Abutsubo is no longer. His mind is no longer. But our extant minds of Buddha can see him now in the seat of enlightenment. That's all this is about. And as I've, dissected this in the past, we have parts of the karma as we're born from our parents. When we marry, when we make that dedication to one another, we intermingle our karmas. This is why marriage can be so difficult, because we are not only dealing with partner A and partner B's karma, but we're dealing with the AB karma. And that's unsettling to each of the A or B of the relationship, right? And ironing those things out is a real karma buster. Really requires a great deal of humility to be married. Or any serious relationship for that matter. Let's not get stuck on the word marriage. And to a lesser degree, any relationship you get into, your people, associates at work, friendships. They don't have to be loving friendships, but as soon as there's intimacy, there's a greater plunge into one another's karmic engines, right? Because there's karma that drives your existence into being, and there's karma that's made constantly in thought, word, or deed. So there are predominant traits, tendencies, and conditions, which undoubtedly bring you together to begin with. But then in the mix, you start making thoughts, words, and deeds colored by the relationship. And so you're rediscovering yourself in a sort of way, so as your partner is. This is why you hear people say all the time, you're not the person I met. Well, true enough. Tomorrow, I won't be the person you know today, because I will continue to make causes and be influenced by other causes. And the way I resolve those things will constitute who I am in the next moment. Right? Let's continue, because I could just go on and on here. If what I say is not true, then it is no error of mine. Rather, the tongue of the thus come one Shakyamuni, who said, quote, "The world-honored one has long expounded his doctrines and now must reveal the truth," along with the tongue of many treasures Buddha, who declared the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law, so on and so forth, all that you, Shakyamuni, have expounded is the truth. Remember, this is all from the sutra. As well as the tongues of all the various Buddhas, the thus come ones in 410,000 million Nayutas of lands, who are as numerous as hemp or rice plants, as stars or stalks of bamboo lined up side by side with never a gap between them, and who, without a single exception, extended their long, broad tongues up to the palace of the great heavenly King Brahma. All these tongues, I say, will in one moment rot away like a whale that has died and decayed, or like a heap of sardines that have rotted. All the Buddhas and thus come ones in the worlds of the 10 directions will be guilty of the offense of speaking great falsehoods. The earth of the pure land of tranquil light, which is made of gold and emeralds, will suddenly split open, and all these Buddhas will, like Devadatta, plunge headlong into the great citadel of the hell of incessant suffering. Or, as happened to the nun Dharma Lotus Fragrance, fierce flames will shoot out of their bodies because of the great lies they have told. And the flower garden of the Lotus Treasury world, a land of actual reward, will in one instant be reduced to a place of ashes. But how could such things be possible? So in other words, he's being very adamant about what he's saying here about Abutsubo. He's saying, I'm not just fluffing you up here to make you feel better. This is doctrinal fact. If you understand the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge-kyo, the teaching of the Dharma, then you must know that because Abutsubo dedicated himself to the doctrines that I lead people to the Lotus Sutra, as the votary of the Lotus Sutra, as Bodhisattva superior practices, and Abutsubo and you yourself and your family have all dedicated your practice of Buddhism to Myoho Renge-kyo rather than Nembutsu and all that other, that you are practicing as is appropriate to the time, your capacity, and your Buddhahood. With respect to Shakyamuni's teachings, how could you fail to attain Buddhahood, which is what he's been talking about? Therefore, if you wonder where Abutsubo is now, it's a fanciful question, but where Abutsubo exists is no longer in physical reality. He's no longer part of samsara. Therefore, he as an identity, which is always a falsehood in Buddhism anyway, in samsara, he's gone. But he continues to exist in spirit, in mind, in those whose lives he touched. And therefore, simply because of his proper influence from practicing Buddhism correctly, he can only be a positive influence toward Buddha. This is what Nichiren is saying. And he's also saying this to his wife, saying that she should conceive of him, his image, because he's still alive in her mind, very much so, as leading her to her awakening. Don't worry about him being in some hell, some distress, his pain. Don't focus on him that way, because that's you destroying your mental idea of enlightenment and Buddhahood. You're stealing from yourself. So if you consistently see him as liberated and having achieved his enlightenment, that will in turn enlighten you, because it will lighten your mind, right? This is a whole game of, I don't want to reduce this to psychology, but you see how this all has to do with mental fortitude and causation, thoughts, right? 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Buddhism is all about that attitude, intent. The way you think is crucial to the way you experience life. Not live your life, experience your life. Follow? If the Leda Butsubo alone were not admitted to the pure land of tranquil light, then all these Buddhas would fall into the realm of great suffering, leaving all else aside. You should consider things in this light. On this basis, you may judge the truth or falsehood of the Buddha's words. There it is, exactly what I was just explaining. The truth of the Buddha's words are a reference for her life, her understanding of her own enlightenment. So, leaving all else aside, you should consider things in this light. In other words, understanding that your husband, although you lament his passing and you may still be grieving, understand that he is an enlightened being. See him in that light. This will then lift your life, because your karmas are entwined, right? So this is critically important. Don't let yourself be influenced into dark thoughts, because they're irrelevant here. His life was dedicated, and you should laud him in that light. Keep using these silly similes, but I hope you understand, I think. On this basis, you may judge the truth or falsehood of the Buddha's words. Why do we say that? Because that's a contemporary thing that she herself is doing. Stay the course. Keep practicing Myoho Renge Kyo. However you envision your Gohonzon of enlightenment, include with it the accomplishments of your husband, and they will bring your life condition up to meet his, right? And your entire family. A man is like a pillar, a woman like the crossbeam. A man is like the legs of a person, a woman like the trunk. A man is like the wings of a bird, a woman like the body. If the wings and the body become separated, then how can the bird fly? And if the pillar topples, then the crossbeams will surely fall to the ground. A home without a man is like a person without a heart. With whom can you discuss matters of business? And though you may have good things to eat, with whom can you share them? Merely to be separated from your husband for a day or two is cause for uneasiness. Yet you were parted from your husband on the 21st day of the 3rd month of last year, and passed the remainder of the year without seeing his return. Now it is already the 7th month of this year. Even though he himself does not return, why does he not send you some word? So again, this is part of the grieving process that Nichiren is trying to contemporize, trying to well, put into words of some sort of healing. The cherry blossoms once scattered have again come into bloom, and the fruit once fallen has formed again on the trees. The spring breezes are unchanged, and the scenes of autumn are just as they were last year. How is it that, in this one matter alone, things should be so different from what they were, never to be the same again? Those are words that I would think he would be making her cry right now. The moon sets and rises again. The clouds disperse and then gather once more. Even heaven must regret and earth lament that this man has gone away and will never come again. Now listen to that carefully, because a lot of you, and it's not your fault, there's a lot of translation bias and errors, but this idea of life after death and repetitive life cycles, all of that is to explain this experience in this lifetime, in this mind, which only exists in this lifetime. And I'm hammering on that because here Nichiren is giving that away. He's saying, even heaven must regret and earth lament that this man has gone away and will never come again. How much more plainly could he say it? He's not saying he's now in another life and he's in the land of la la la, and when he returns he'll be a this or a that. That's not Buddhism. That's magical thinking. This will, and he will never come again. You yourself must feel the same. Rely upon the Lotus Sutra as nourishment for your journey, and quickly set out for the pure land of Eagle Peak so that you can meet him there. Meet him there. He just said he doesn't exist anymore. He's never returning. He is in mind enlightened, but he's no longer there. Whose mind is he talking about? Hers. So that you can meet him there is an urgency for her to attain enlightenment. In enlightenment, there are no distinctions. In enlightenment, not like heaven and all of those other diseased thoughts. In enlightenment, there are no distinctions. There is no you and me. There is no her and her husband. There is only pure experience of the entire cosmos of evolving life, of which we're tiny little instantiations of form, just so that we can realize the immense, emancipatory experience of enlightenment. So for her to reach her enlightenment, she can view it in her earthly physical form as meeting him there. But it's not a meeting, and it's not a him or her. It's an experience of enlightenment which is equal to. Doesn't mean she's going to die. He doesn't say hurry up and die so you can join him, right? That would be the fallacy. No, he's saying quickly set out for the pure land of Eagle Peak. In other words, hunker down in your practice so that you can instantiate your Buddha as he has. When you do that, all of these distinctions and anything that might create sufferings in this life will disappear. Does that make sense now? Right? You see it, right? There is a sutra passage that says that children are one's enemies. Quote, people in this world commit many sins because of their children. It states, although the birds known as the crested hawk and eagle raise their youth with compassion, the young turn around and eat their parents. And the bird known as the owl, after it is hatched, invariably devours its mother. Such is the case among the lowly creatures. Even among human beings, King Virudaka seized the throne from his father, whom he resented, and King Ajatashatru murdered his father. And Lushan killed his foster mother, and An Qingxue killed his father. An Lushan and An Qingxue was killed by Shishiming, who was like a son to him, and Shishiming was in turn killed by his son, Shi Chaoyi. Thus, there is good reason why children are spoken of as enemies. The monk named Sunakashatra was a son of Shakyamuni Buddha, but he conspired with a follower of the non-Buddhist teachings who was called Painfully Acquired and attempted time and again to kill his father, the Buddha. So again, there's a lot of folklore around the relationship of father-son, mother-daughter, mother-son, father-daughter, on and on and on. I would put this in the camp of the intimacy karmic mix, because in that, now I was talking earlier about karma A, karma B, joining in intimacy, making karma AB. In that karma AB, there is this C, this third entity of karma that comes and conjoins with the AB. That is the child, which has its own energy, its own momentum, and its mix of tendencies and conditions with the karma of A, B, AB, all together make you and me. It kind of rhymed. So you see, we're not a product of our mother and father. We're a product of our own making with added tendencies of the combination of our mother-father. This is what we carry into our physical instantiation. This is why we have this whole conversation here about filial behavior. It's built in. And oftentimes, children rebel against their parents. And we can delude that into they just fighting authority, but that's not right, is it? Not in light of karma, not in light of understanding how an individual, C, can instantiate his realm of experience in this life while wrestling with the inferiority or superiority in that child's experience with A, B, and AB. Because they stand as influences, positive, negative, welcomed, unwelcomed, of his or her own motive, force, momentum, right? Think about a billiard table. And think about the cue ball being the entity to be born, the baby, if you will, but this kind of pre-baby. When that cue ball strikes that triangular arrangement of all the other cue balls, it's going to hit one or two balls to start everything rolling, right? And let's say for the moment it hits two. Those two balls that it hits will definitely affect its trajectory, the cue ball's direct trajectory, yes? And those two balls that it hit will definitely be affected by the trajectory of the cue ball. Does that make sense? This is what what word to use here? What's the word I'm looking for? the fertilization. Sperm enters egg, boom, child. Before it's a child, before it's a baby, before it's a zygote. Or perhaps you want to picture the zygote. Picture it as this billiard table. There's a lot of action. Because even though it's intimately related with its own cue ball, all white, running into these other two, could be any, AB. AB is already being influenced by all of the other cue balls. And all of the other cue balls influencing those two that the cue ball hit also affect the cue ball's trajectory. Oh my goodness. This is why when you hear in Buddhism this analogy of, I don't know what to call it, but when they say we affect the karma of our relations, our relatives, 14 generations forwards and back. 14 is an arbitrary number that comes from many sources in Asian history, but it's a hard number that's used often just to demonstrate. If you, in your mind, try to conjecture 14 levels of relatives, right? Mom, dad, each mother and father's your grandparents, their parents. Keep going to the 14th level and see how many people you get. It's a billiard table. No, you know what? I'm going to be strict with myself, and I'm not going to create a billiard table analogy video. That's normally what I would do, I guess. But I hope that visualizes this for you. This is very much the structure of our mental life as individuals. We never think that way. We always think me, 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 me. That's why we suffer so. If we could think from an early age about our own trajectory being not only influenced contemporaneously by these other people in our lives, but that they were part and parcel of who we think we are and our experience and how we experience things, we might be given a little bit more pause about how secure we are in our thinking this one way, because your thoughts are influenced outside of your experience. You're just culling them together. And so decision making, critical thinking becomes more essential to your idea of self. Which I know we don't have an permanent self, but that works right into this thinking. The idea that we're not a singular karmic momentum, right? We have our own momentum, but it is constantly influenced by history, backwards and forwards, of how we're going to move through all of these tendencies and conditions, which we now are wearing like a heavy coat. So yeah, there's these very flowery stories from Asian folklore, China, India, Japan, of these filial relationships, which is the topic of this letter. And they're very dramatic. But this is the point Nichiren is trying to make. Not that children are our enemies, but because they are our greatest karmic challenge. They represent actual parts of our life. There is also a sutra passage that says that children are a treasure. It states, quote, because of the rewards their sons and daughters accumulate through their practice, their Buddhist practice, a great bright light appears, illuminating the realm of hell, and the parents suffering in hell are thereby able to awaken a confident or having confidence mind. Because whenever our child succeeds at something, a little part of us goes, yes, there's hope in life. Right? But even if the Buddha had not taught that children are a treasure, you could not tell as much simply from the evidence before your eyes. In other words, this runs deeper. In India, there was once a great ruler, the king of the country called Parthia. This king was inordinately fond of horses and horse raising. In time, he became so expert in raising them that he could not only turn a worthless horse into an outstanding one, but could also transform an ox into a horse. Okay. He was talented. Eventually, he even turned people into horses and rode them. I'm not sure about this one. Let's see where this goes. The citizens of his own state were so grieved at this that he began to turn only people from other lands into horses. Oh, don't worry, I won't do that to you. I'll just do it to people we don't care about. Thus, when a traveling merchant came to his kingdom from another country, he gave the merchant a potion to drink, transformed him into a horse, and tied him up in the royal stables. Yikes, this story is really irksome. Even under ordinary circumstances, the merchant yearned for his homeland, and in particular thought lovingly of his wife and child. Thus he found his present lot very difficult to bear, I would imagine. So not only is he a horse, but he retains his human mind. Talk about a hell. But since the king would not allow him to go home, he could not do so. Indeed, even if it had been possible, what could he have done there in his present form? Hi, honey. So all he could do was bewail his fate morning and evening. This man had a son who, when his father failed to return at the expected time, began to wonder if he'd been killed or perhaps fallen ill. Feeling that, as a son, he must find out what happened to his father, he set out on a journey to do so. So this is an archetypal story, right? He's quoting a particular one, but in the West we have very similar analogies, prodigal son stuff, back and forth stories. Anyway, his mother lamented, protesting that her husband had already gone off to another land and failed to return, and that if she were now to be abandoned by her son, her only son as well, she did not know how she would carry on. But the son was so deeply concerned about his father, he was nevertheless set off for the country of Parthia in search of him. I think I'm going to pause here. Ha ha ha! Suspense. And we'll continue with, upon his arrival, he was put up for the night at a small lodging. And can't wait to see how this turns out. Will he become a horse as well? Will the whole family reunite as a family of horses? We'll see in the next part. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking through this along with me. I think there's a lot of great information here on relationships, filial, not only, we can think of filial relationships as parent to sibling or a child and vice versa. But as I've said before, the filial conversation in Buddhism is not only that we recognize its dynamic interrelationships between individuals, yet parent-child or parent-parent, parent to great, parent, the whole lineage, but also to the teachings of Shakyamuni. We're very filial in that we want to keep straight in our minds the proper order of Shakyamuni's teachings and the culmination of his teachings, Myoho Renge Kyo. So, yes, this is a letter to a woman about her son, but Nichiren is very adept at expanding the dialogue to understand that it's not only this personal pull that she has, this tug of earthly, visceral, I made this being called my son. That's a very, very strong bond with mother and son. What Nichiren is trying to do is explain to her that in Buddhism, we understand this relationship very deeply, causally, and how to properly wrap your mind around it so that it is a positive influence, that it leads to accomplishment and freedom and an experience of life complete, rather than, as it often does in personal relationships, raise fears, and we get hung up on those fears, and we just go down these dark avenues of the mind, and it causes our samsaric sufferings. Don't do that. Look at it this way. Look at it through the eyes of Buddhism, through Shakyamuni, through Myoho Renge-kyo, and see how glorious it is. No matter what you think in samsara you're experiencing, change your perspective. Change your perspective. Right? Change your perspective. That is Buddhism. Namo Myoho Renge-kyo. Thank you once again. For those of you who support me through Patreon or through individual donations, it's so helpful. You don't even know how critical you are to the continued content creation on this channel. I can't encapsulate in words how much I appreciate you guys, and how proud I am that you're doing this for yourself, your own practice. Don't forget, this is about your Buddhahood. I'm proud of you. Take care of your health. Be kind. And I'll see you in the next one. We'll find out what happens to the sun. Bye-bye for now. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel? And it won't cost you a cent. Yep. If you are not able to be a patron on Patreon, or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain, because you don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now, you, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video, like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk, and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. It's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So, just wanted to drop that in on you, in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.